let's peer into the read-only memory. I'd like to find out what exists inside of ROM. We can have a bootstrap program in there. We have the power on self-test. We have ROM monitor. What are all of these about? Well, we have microcode that is inside ROM. The microcode can perform basic functions for our device. When our device is first powered on, is the operating system running right away? No, of course not. That is true for all of our electronic components. We need some type of code, microcode, that runs first in order to do what? Well, let's go ahead and test all of the different components and make sure that they are operating correctly. This is known as the power on self-test, or POST, to begin with. And let's have the bootstrap code that's going to be utilized in order to locate the operating system, locate the configuration files, load all of that up so then we can have a fully functioning router. In addition to that, in ROM, we have what is known as ROM monitor. What is that? That's a mini operating system. A mini operating system that can be used for disaster recovery, for password recovery. So anytime there is some type of recovery, a disaster that has occurred, you can load up this mini operating system called ROM monitor, and you can perform some very, very basic low-level functions in there to try and return your router to its normal operating state. But let's run through what's happening here in the beginning. We have ROM. So ROM, read-only memory. That's where we find that microcode. So the microcode can run the power on self-test for us, run diagnostics on all the different hardware components to make sure that everything is functioning as it should. And then once that completes, then the bootstrap program in ROM can take over. And the bootstrap program's going to do a lot of different things for us. First of all, it has to figure out where is the iOS software. So the bootstrap is the one that's locating the iOS software. It is then loading that operating system. And if it can't locate or load the operating system, then it'll make sure that it loads that ROM monitor mode for us. So where might the bootstrap look for us? The bootstrap might look in Flash. It might look on a TFTP server or anywhere else we deem that the iOS software image could possibly be. Once the iOS software image is loaded, then Bootstrap takes over again, and Bootstrap says, all right, where is our configuration file? So it's going to start to locate and load the configuration file. If it doesn't locate or load a configuration file, then it'll present you with the system configuration dialog. So it's going to enter setup mode for you. Where can it find the configuration file? In NVRAM, on a TFTP server, through the console port. So there are many different ways that you can configure your device to get the configuration file located and loaded. However, the most common ways here is going to be Flash for the operating system, and it's going to be NVRAM for the configuration file. So all of this has to happen before we can even get to user exec mode and start configuring our router or use the router for routing functionality.